Hello and welcome to this short video. Today we're going to be having a look at the character of Sheila Birling and taking a look at how she links to the key themes and how she plays a really crucial role the whole way through the play of An Inspector Calls. Now, Sheila is described as being in her 20s, very pretty and very happy with her life. Now, this is really crucial. She is meant to be presented as the epitome of what you should aim to be like as a young woman growing up in this middle to upper class world. She's obviously Mr. And Mrs. Birling's daughter, so sits very high on the class pyramid and is also due to marry into the aristocracy with her marriage to Gerald, and she represents what Priestley would have seen as a very, very standard, very run-of-the-mill daughter for this kind of role. And because of that, he wanted to show how he's able to manipulate someone that is going very, very strictly through the class system that would have been there at the day. It's also really crucial to note that the playwright has specified at the beginning of the play that she's happy with her life. Now, this therefore tells us that there will be some foreshadowing, and it shows us that there will be some conflict throughout the play where Sheila will not be happy in her life, or even that by the end of the play she will not be happy with her life. This is obviously going to be twisted and turned on its head by the time that the inspector leaves us. Now, she represents several key themes throughout the whole of this play. Now, as we've already mentioned, she's meant to be this young lady of the higher middle classes moving into the aristocracy. And the first time we meet Sheila, she's getting ready to marry Gerald and celebrating her engagement and talking about the ring she's going to wear. So this quote, "Oh Gerald, you've got it. Is this the one you wanted me to have? Now I really feel engaged." This shows that her initial attitudes, they can be linked to her class system, so it can be linked to obviously the fact that she's been waiting on this ring that Gerald specifically wanted her to have, maybe a family heirloom or something very specific to Gerald. It also shows us very capitalist values, in that she cares a lot about the ring and the one that it is, rather than worrying so much about the relationship, which, as we know, perhaps wasn't all that it seemed at the beginning of the play when they were talking about Gerald not coming near her for a month. And it also is showing how Priestley is almost mocking them for caring about what an engagement ring looks like as a symbol of their love, rather than worrying about what their relationship is like. Now, why Sheila is really interesting is she changes completely throughout the play. Now, towards the end, she turns to having a far more socialist attitude than she does at the beginning when she was working at Millwoods. And quotes such as, "But these girls aren't cheap labour, they're people." She is the first character of the inspector to move the idea away of these girls being a commodity and more towards them being members of society that need to be looked after. And she very, very much switches to this socialist attitude that Priestley is trying to show throughout An Inspector Calls. And then one of the last things that she says towards the end of her interview is, "And it's my fault really that she was so desperate when you first met her." Sheila is the first character to really take social responsibility. She is the first person to switch from this, well, it could have happened to anyone, and it's not really my fault style attitude to, this is on me, I'm the reason I've caused this. So she becomes the first character really that we as an audience can empathise with, that we can understand, and that we can start to feel like we have some form of relationship with. She then goes on to talk about how at the end of the play everyone goes back to acting normally, and she says that she's unable to do this because even if the play didn't end tragically, that's out of luck more than judgment. And this shows that the inspector's message has stuck with her, and that it wasn't just during her interview or during when the inspector was there that she felt intimidated or felt like she had to take some kind of responsibility. It shows that the messages stuck there and meant something to her, which was obviously what J.B. Priestley was trying to do all along. Now, lastly, we need to consider Sheila's message. Now, every character in this play has a message and a role to play. Now, Sheila, more than any other character, is influenced by the inspector and therefore is influenced by what J.B. Priestley is trying to say. So we already discussed, she is the only character in the first instance, that's there for the entirety of the play, that switches the whole way through and kind of provides this running narrative on how the playwright wants us to feel alongside the inspector. And she moves from seeing herself as an important member of society through to eventually echoing the inspector's message. She moves from seeing herself as above Eva when she worked at the shop and getting her fired because she felt insecure about how she looked, through to eventually echoing the inspector's message even when the inspector has gone, and really relaying that to everybody else. And her and Eric, more than any other characters in this play, represent the future, whereas Mr. and Mrs. Birling, and even Gerald to some extent, represent the past and things that have happened. They represent the future of the country and the future of the way things are going. And therefore, they're being presented as all the positives that Priestley was hoping for when he created the play, when he showed this vision he had for the future of the country. That is why he's shown both Sheila and Eric to buy into this, because he firmly believes that this is the way that the world should work in the future, because the old way of doing it, as the audience be aware of if they're watching it in the 40s when it was first written and performed, the old way of doing it wouldn't have seemed like a good way of doing it, given we'd just come out of, you know, the worst 40-year period in terms of lives lost across Europe in living memory. So he was hoping that they would represent the future and everything positive about that. Now that's really it. It's Sheila is a main character throughout the play, and she provides a lot of commentary through on how the audience should be feeling, and is sort of the glue that binds everything together, and is the reason. And she is the one that's making sure that her family are being held to account for what they've done. So that's just a really, really short character analysis on Sheila. Please do go back through, use the quotes that have been provided there, and listen through for ways that these can be linked to the themes. Just remember that Sheila is a really good one to look at if you're looking at the themes of social responsibility, and also looking at the argument of socialist versus capitalist that wages throughout the play. Right, thank you very much for listening.